Ethical Perspectives on the News is produced by the Interreligious Council of Linn County, which is solely responsible for its content. The views and opinions expressed on this program do not necessarily reflect those of the staff and management of KCRG TV9.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Ethical Perspectives. We have selected a complex topic, the future of education, and it was inspired as we recognize the challenges of higher education, not only in the era of COVID, but as these institutions educate while meeting the needs of diverse student populations and amidst the disruptive business models and considering the need to make education affordable, that among many other challenges. Although we'll barely scratch the surface of this topic in 30 minutes, one of our panelists, Dr. Sundberg, has provided us with a starting point. So I would like to invite our panelists to introduce themselves and share a little about their institutions and about how these institutions complement each other and about their passion for their work. Who would like to start?
I can start. I am Lori Sundberg. I'm the president at Kirkwood Community College, and probably most of you know that we serve a 7-county region. We are a community college. We have both technical education as well as liberal arts, as well as a pretty robust community education, personal enrichment, corporate training program. And I like to think that partnerships with both of the other guests who are here tonight are really what we're about in education. We all can't do it all. And so to develop partnerships and to take the resources we have and make them go farther, I think is going to be the model going forward. So I'm excited to have this conversation tonight with both of our guests.
Go ahead, Samantha.
All right, thanks, Mike. I'm Samantha Dahlby. I am the Director of K-12 Education at Nubo Co. Nubo Co is a nonprofit based in Cedar Rapids that works with the entire state of Iowa and in some cases for our programs regionally for multi-states. My focus is really in our education portion. In addition to entrepreneurship and innovation, education is really big for us. And even within that area, we break it down into adult education, where we have some options for career switchers for adults to participate in our software and IT apprenticeship boot camp programs. But then I work a lot with our K-12 educators within the state to bring programs and opportunities to schools throughout Iowa. And then we like to test out the things that we also do, and we run some student-facing programs on weekends and in summers.
And I'm Mike Carson. I'm the Director of Training for the Cedar Rapids Electrical Apprenticeship. So we train electricians for IBEW programs. We have in our 7-county jurisdiction about 32 different signatory contractors that we train electricians for. I entered the program in 1980, started my apprenticeship. That was after I had gone to Drake University for 2 years on a scholarship. And I grew up working with my hands. I love to build things, and that's what we do. We see the physical accomplishment of what we do every day. And so, you know, I'm glad to talk about any of the building trades. We work with all the building trades. There's about 14 or 15 of them that have apprenticeship programs in the state of Iowa and nationwide. So our certifications are valid nationwide wherever we go for any of the contractors that we work with. And as Lori said, you know, we do work with Kirkwood Community College and the K-12 educational system to promote these opportunities to the students, as well as the other post-secondary options.
Yeah, and I think that's what's so interesting about this group, how the various institutions support each other. And although I don't know as much about your organization, Samantha, I'm anxious to hear. But I remember a couple of years ago, I took some Washington high school students to Iowa City as the builders were actually building Hancher. And I can't forget the excitement of the kids just being actually there, watching Hancher being built. And Lori, I know that Kirkwood, I've been around since Kirkwood was just a building on the hill. So it's just amazing how the education universe is evolving. Would you each like to say something about the unique challenges of your particular institution?
Sure. I think, of course, what we're all facing right now is COVID and how to still deliver education in a really quality format for all of our students. And so that's a huge challenge facing us. We're about 40% face-to-face and about 60% online. But for all of our CTE education, so our career tech education, they have labs and clinicals, and those have to be performed in person. And you can't learn to be a nurse online, or you can't learn to be a dental hygienist online. And so we still have to figure out a way to deliver that education. And so that's really been this year the biggest challenge that we faced. And we've gotten pretty creative. And at the same time, it is a challenge for us, particularly on our career tech side. And so, that's probably the biggest challenge right now that's imminent for us.
I would say that I'm sure there's lots of challenges, but one I'll kind of pick out to discuss is making sure, going back to that collaboration, that we are collaborating and we're finding what the needs are within the state and partnering to fill in gaps. One of the perks that we have going for us is that our organization is very agile, and so we kind of pride ourselves in being able to identify a problem, come up with some solutions, and try to fill in that gap. In some cases, we may do that initially and then hand off the work to someone else that's better suited to maintain it and sustain it. In some cases, it may stay with us for the long term to maintain and continue going. So looking at, in times like this where we need to pivot quickly, in some cases, education isn't known for being agile and being able to adjust quickly, and for good reason in a lot of instances. But we can kind of fill in that gap. But it's making sure that we are balancing that with making sure that it is still high quality. We're filling a need, and we're figuring out how to make that long lasting and what's needed in the state within our schools.
Yeah, and for the apprenticeship program, we're handling not only their training here in the training center, which, just like Lori and Samantha said, is a challenge because we've had students here, we've had to send them home and do training via Zoom. But just like Lori said, we have so many hands-on qualifications that we have to do here in the training center. And so we're just kind of front-loading the beginning part of the school year with all the curriculum, and hoping that when we get everybody back in here, whether that's February or later, as soon as we can, that we have to really catch up on all of our hands-on activities. But the other portion for us is the jobs that these guys and gals actually work at. So, all the contractors face unique challenges with people, a certain percentage of their workforce that may end up sitting home in quarantine or isolation. And so we got to figure out, how to meet their manpower needs while their job deadlines still loom in front of them. So we've kind of got a two-faced challenge there, both the on-the-job with the employers and then the training here in the training center. So it's definitely a challenge that we're working through.
I encourage you to interact with each other too, because I know that you have information to share. We can talk about a lot of things related to the future of education, technology. How will the disruptive business models impact education? What about the political impacts of the incoming administration? Let's start off with a little conversation about technology. SOE Online educators suggest from smart tables to biometric devices, voice recognition technology, artificial intelligence classrooms will create individual learning experiences. Digital learning content will replace printed books. What do you think about that? How close are we to technology? How much is it going to revolutionize how we learn?
That's a great question. And it's a complicated question. And so what I would say is we are dipping our toe into artificial intelligence at Kirkwood. We do have a pretty good amount of textbooks now that are open education resource, so digital. I would see us moving more in that direction as we go forward. And I think that there's a lot that technology can do and really help us in the classroom. And I just give you a couple of examples. For example, like in a biology classroom, there's a t-shirt that you can put on that will actually show the circulatory system. And it really brings to life for students that whole system, and it's done exclusively through technology. So those are just some of the, and that's just one example of ways that we actually can bring it into the classroom. But I think that what we've learned with COVID is that there's a lot that we can do with technology, and there's a lot we can do virtually. And I think really this kind of the sky's the limit on it. And we are exploring many different areas of that to see what works best.
I think right now is kind of a great test bed for this. I hear a lot of conversation among educators and like when we get back to what things were before. And I would like to pose, and I often pose this in conversations, what if we don't go back? What does going forward look like? I'm not saying we do all virtual schooling. I think that's maybe not what we need right now, but we can pull out the things that are working and keep those going forward and find the best ways to engage with students. Things that I've heard are, especially for high school students, getting them out of the school building more. What would it look like if they had more integrated, more project-based learning, which is a big thing already, happening outside of the school for their upperclassmen years instead of having it just classroom-based. These aren't things that are for sure, but we can think about that now because we have this kind of scenario where everything's been blown apart. We don't have to put it back the same way that it came apart. We can put it back together in a different way and see what that looks like as far as technology. And also, I don't ever see us getting rid of actual teachers in a classroom. We can supplement and we can certainly bring things in, but we still, I think, especially right now, realize that we need that human touch, that compassion, that connection that we get with students and teachers at lots of different levels. But we can certainly use technology to augment it and to enhance those things. We can use it to connect long distance in certain scenarios and things like that. But I definitely encourage people to think about how we can innovate now because we have to, but also long-term, what's working, what isn't, put the things together that were working before, put the things together that are still working now, but also new things that we've learned.
I think that's a good point, Samantha, because what we've learned is that students do want that connection, right? They're missing that piece of it. We did a survey with our students in the spring and when COVID first happened and said, how do you want to get your education in the fall? Because we wanted to make sure we were delivering it. And by and large, they said face-to-face. And so while we can use technology in all kinds of ways in the classroom and in all kinds of ways for learning, there's still that component of the connection. And I think you're right. I don't think we're ever going to replace a teacher in the classroom, but certainly we can use it for other ways to augment learning. So totally agree with that.
I don't think you can ever replace experience, and that's why teachers can't go away. I mean, that's the whole concept of apprenticeship, going clear back to the time of Christ, is that you're learning from people who have experience. So although we can teach with new methods, new technologies, you can't replace the experience. And that's why people like me with gray hair are still around. But I mean, a lot of what dictates what we do in training is because of the advancements in our industry. That dictates what we do. So, just like Lori was saying, they're, experimenting with virtual reality. Well, augmented reality is very similar to that. But those are technologies that our customers, I'll give you a good example. We're used to using blueprints, paper blueprints, that are this thick, and you're pouring through electrical, plumbing, mechanical, architecture, all these different blueprints, and you might have 300 to 800 people on a job site, depending on the size of the job site. The University of Iowa Children's Hospital probably had 800 construction workers on it for 3 years. So the technology and the communication is massive that has to happen for those jobs to be completed. Well, so now they've developed augmented reality, so you can put on a pair of glasses and walk into an empty room and see it at completion. You can see where all the conduits are, where all the steam lines are, where all the walls are, where all the electrical within that, everything that's in the floor before the concrete gets poured. So the workers can actually envision that in their head before they actually start the job. So, and that's a huge technology that's going to be a great benefit to us.
Yeah, Mike,
Yeah,
there's also manufacturers that they want to do repair work on particular machines, and they want their so what they typically do now, they have to call in a technician. The technician has to travel to them to fix the machine, and what they want to do is be able to have the goggles to put on that
Right.
then lead the technician, their own technician, through that repair. And so it's incredible what's available through technology, through virtual reality and augmented reality. And so, I mean, I think that is the future, right? In lots of areas, but not as a replacement for the
Right.
connection.
Mhm. I think that all of this technology moving so quickly and impacting so many different industries is also a good point in like the continuing education needs for all different industries. So before, I remember when I was young and I used to think that life was just a straight line and you found your passion, you went to college or training or whatever you did, you found a career, you stayed there for 30 years, then you got off the train and you went golfing. And I now am a bit wiser and realize that it looks a little bit more like a big mess of spaghetti on how you get around. But I think that we need to be instilling in students and also adults that we need to continue learning because so much is advancing and changing that it's exciting. It's a good thing to keep learning. And even if it's just, maybe a one-day class that you're getting exposed to something, that's very important, and that education is much more than just K through 12 and then post-secondary option. But I think that all of this stuff is really hitting on why we need to make these opportunities available in different formats, in different lengths, for different interests, maybe from the hobbyist all the way up to career impact. And I think all of us have kind of different impact on that and offerings that can help out with people with different interests and different levels and just exploring on to changing their careers.
And that's maybe what Kirkwood or what the COVID has done for us, is it's kind of allowed us to see that different lengths of time, different formats, different ways to get education, we can be pretty fluid with that. And even with continuing ed as well. I don't know about you, but I do continuing ed myself, right? I mean, right, the courses that appeal to me that are leisure, it's about lifelong learning, but it's also about, kind of tailoring that just to students and their needs.
The downfall of one of the downfalls of COVID has been that we are not able to get together in person. But on the other hand, look at how many different aspects of how we can pull together different people from all over the nation, even, or you in the comfort of your home, you can still be delivering this message through this episode of Ethical Perspectives. And not to make too much more of a point on it, but there are also the virtual platforms such as Second Life or perhaps social media use augmented reality to replace classroom learning. And algorithms in educational games will create personalized and engaging learning experiences. So I don't know if there's any more to say about that, but these are definitely technologies that are impacting education. One more that may or may not apply to your particular institution is surveillance. And I mean it as in, we need to hold students accountable, but on the other hand, we have to balance that tension with respecting their privacy. How does that consider or factor into your work as educators?
Yeah, so we don't do a lot of surveillance. We obviously have cameras on the campus. So that's one way that we would have surveillance. We would have the ability to go into an email account, but we don't unless we have, a direct need to do that. And we consider our students adults. And so the surveillance on our end is pretty low. We don't track websites that students visit. What we do is we block. websites we don't want visited on our campus. So that's the way we approach it. So our surveillance is probably less than the K-12, just because of the nature of our students.
Yeah, and I think, I mentioned this briefly the other day, but
Yeah.
our students are adults as well. And so one thing that does give a level of accountability, though, probably in the past 7 years, all of our homework used to be done out of workbooks, and then the students would come back and they'd open their workbooks and we'd go through those lessons. But our national organization created an LMS, a learning management system, and so all those workbooks were created digitally, and so the students do their homework online through a national server. But what that allows our instructors and myself to do is look to see how long it took every student to do every homework assignment, when they logged in, when they logged out, every question they got right or wrong, the score on every lesson they did. And we basically have to do a good job of letting the students know, hey, that's there, so that our instructors can tailor their lesson every day based on what they see that the student knows. So we're not being redundant in things that they've already learned, and so that we can move on. But it does give a big level of accountability. So it's not really surveillance, but it is, the electronic world that has come into our training center.
Mm-hmm.
We do that as well, Mike. We do on our online courses, and we have a learning management system, and we can and we do want to know, is a student logging in every day? What are they getting right or wrong? Those kinds of things. But I guess in my mind, I wasn't feeling like that was a lot of surveillance.
Right.
That was more trying to help us understand learning and the students' engagement in the course. But I completely agree. We do the same. It's valuable. It's valuable feedback for us.
Yeah, I'll just say that we don't have anything necessarily with like K-12 students that we use that with, but with our teachers and some of the programs, we do have a dashboard where we can see high-level information like, are they using the course? Have they enrolled students in it? What units are they teaching? Things like that. I would say that similar to what Lori said, that we use it to reach out as a way to make that first contact with a human to say, hey, we've noticed that you haven't started yet. Is there anything we can do to support you? Did plans change this year? A lot of the discussion, the feedback this year is, well, it's COVID. We've been bouncing between virtual, hybrid, and in person. So we've pushed it off to second semester. Or sometimes, we would hear, well, our administrator pulled this course. We were planning to teach it. And then that gives us another way to follow up with the administrator and kind of see what barriers may exist that are out of their control, that are in their control, and provide that type of support. I will say that from like our computer science education aspect, though, security and surveillance is a really great, interesting topic around the ethics of computing. And it's great for students to understand where that threshold is. Whether you're downloading an app that you don't expect to be watching what you're doing in your daily life, or if it's something in an environment like a school where it's there to help protect you. I think it's good to have those discussions and get that comfort level, because again, that technology and those use cases are going very quickly, that sometimes it's faster than human perspective to maybe correct some of those uses. But yeah, that's kind of where I see things like that happening.
Thank you. Another of Dr. Sundberg's points concerned the workforce and the job market of the future. It was interesting to note that Kevin O'Leary, I'm sure we all know of him, of Shark Tank, said, I'm not worried about business in America. I'm worried about people in America. I'd much rather have a stimulus package that gives individuals checks or extends unemployment benefits for the next 14 months. The government should stop funding companies and bail out Americans instead. He defines, O'Leary, an old economy versus a new digital economy. And the point being, he seems to me to be talking about a new disruptive work and business culture. So what is this revolutionary concept? How does it project? He seems to be talking about minimizing the role of the corporations. So what does that suggest about perhaps the changing role of the employer and the employees, the students that you are preparing to be employees for the future? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It's a question that's kind of out there, and we actually met with my cabinet today. We had a retreat, and we're actually talking about the workforce in the area. And and where we see things going, and how will things change given COVID and given the challenges that we face. And I don't have any answers on that one. I really don't. What I know is that work has changed. The way people work has changed. And I think, like Samantha said earlier, I don't know that we're going to go back to the way it was before. I think there's going to be a new normal. And what that looks like, I'm not certain. But it is something that we're trying to wrestle with as an institution.
It's challenging, and we're all moving forward. We're kind of running out of time. We've got about 4 minutes, and so Samantha and Mike, if you'd like to go ahead and answer that question, please go ahead. Otherwise, if you have comments about takeaways from this episode or things that you would like to share, please go ahead and do that.
Just a bit on the workforce. I don't have answers or crystal ball either, but I think one of the things we're seeing more and more, and this has been true for several years now, is that we need a multitude of skill sets for people to have, and it needs to be embraced that you may gain skills in a certain role that you fill in a job or career, and then you may switch jobs or even entire career fields. You still bring those skills with you, and we're seeing more and more of that need of mashing up of skills to fulfill needs and also kind of break down barriers so we don't have silos between things. One example to kind of give something tangible that's related to the work I do with computer science is that computer scientists may not be experts in finance or the medical fields or something like that, right? They don't have time to learn all of that information, but they're going to partner with people who are experts in those fields and see the problems, see the needs, and they're going to work together to create solutions to that. Now, that doesn't mean that they each know only their content areas. There needs to be some overlap so that they can communicate and they can partner to make that work happen. And I think we're seeing more and more of that, where we need to understand the work that other people are doing and be able to have those communication and collaboration skills and have some peak of an idea of what they're doing so we can make that work happen and have that understanding. And we need to have that broader perspective, broader education, even if we are working in a specific field.
Thank you. Mike, it looks like we're going to let you wind down here. Please leave us with your parting words. And I want to thank all of our guests. Thank you for being here. I've learned a lot and look forward to working with you more in the future. Mike, go ahead.
Sure. I just enjoyed being here with everybody tonight. I mean, what we do in the building trades or in any apprenticeship, you know, it could be healthcare, it could be IT. There's a lot of new different apprenticeship programs that have started in the past few years. But, you know, we work from the middle school level through the high school level with kids, trying to at least expose them to the opportunity. And then we work with Kirkwood, Workplace Learning Connection as well. And I think that there's a lot of education that needs to be done before a student determines if they want to, you know, just try and enter the workforce, or if they want to go to a 4-year college or get some education at a 2-year and get a specific industry-related certificate there. We have plenty of students that come here with a 4-year degree or 2 years from Kirkwood before they come into the apprenticeship. It just gives them, you know, great life experience. So I think I'm just glad I was able to work with both these gals tonight, and for you hosting us.
And that sounds great. And I want to thank all of our panelists again. And we're glad that you were here with us on Ethical Perspectives. Thanks for sharing your perspective.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.